Welcome to the Naked Coach Collective. We're not just your average coaches, we're your powerhouse of inspiration and your no-nonsense guide to unlocking your hidden potential. We are an eclectic mix of four, each with a unique journey, though we share a passion for transformation through coaching. Tune in every week for topical discussions and witty banter on all things coaching. There might be a few laughs along the way too, but don't be fooled. We're serious about helping you navigate life's twists and turns with clarity and confidence. Are you ready? Sit back, relax, and immerse yourself in the Naked Coach Collective podcast.
I'm trying to figure out how to stop recording now.
He's got to press delete. Don't press delete here.
Hello, and welcome to this very special episode of the Naked Coach Collective podcast. You have two of us today. We've got Ian and myself, Darshna, and we will be interviewing a very special guest, Naina Oliver. Hi, Naina.
Huh?
Hi. Naina has had an interesting and wonderfully varied career. She began as a journalist and broadcaster, working with the BBC for over 20 years. Her background in psychology, business and communications meant that she has excelled in her role as an MD of a recruitment company. And all this has brought her to where she is now. Naina, welcome. Welcome to the TNCC podcast. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I know your schedule's very busy. So why don't you take it from there? Tell us about what you're doing now. Your current roles? I know you have more than one.
What am I doing now? Where do I start? I suppose coaching is a thread through everything I do, but I have a variety of things that I do. So I work one-to-one with people. I do team coaching. I do facilitation and training with organizations. But even when I'm facilitating and when I'm training, I use pretty much a coaching approach to everything that I do. So that's what I'm doing now. Lots of training, lots of facilitating. I was just in Paris this week working with Chanel, which was nice, in a lovely chateau. I'm doing some work with a company called Diageo, which is a drinks company. So I work with a lot of big companies, with banks, but I also work with charities. I've worked with the Leprosy Mission. I work with Spark Inside, where we bring coaching to young men in prison. So there's a variety of areas that I like to explore.
Wow. Thank you for that. Can you expand a little bit on the corporate side where you work with the big companies? I know the Spark Inside has got a particular place in your heart, and I would love to talk about that in a moment. But tell us about Chanel you mentioned and the big companies you work for. Where does the coaching come in?
Well, sometimes I'm working with people on where they want to be in their careers, but sometimes I'm helping them understand how they come across, their impact, and how they almost designing their impact, how they would like to influence, to maybe negotiate, to put themselves in a position where they feel that they are assertive without being aggressive, holding boundaries, sort of the art of no, saying no, without anyone hearing no, but also just making an offer of what you're available for, what you can do, so that you actually value your own time, your own space, you value yourself, as a currency maybe, that you're not taken advantage of, but you're also taking yourself seriously and knowing your own value.
Wonderful. Ian, would you like to add anything there?
I may be going a little back on it, to be honest, Naina. I'm quite intrigued as how you went from journalist and broadcaster working in the BBC to where you are now and what that journey looked like.
So I started out as a psychologist. And I was planning to go into clinical psychology. And I was even spending some time at the hospital I grew up in Leicester. And I was very lucky to have even gone to university, because I was the first in my family to go to university, and it wasn't really really in the cards. And I always had this idea of journalism, but I remember when I did actually get to university, a careers advisor saying, I think you should be more realistic. So I did to pursue it. I was given an introduction, and this is very interesting because I think this has had an impact on my life. I had a fantastic tutor called Mr. Scaife, and at many points in my time, there's only 2 years that I was in sixth form, and he was my form tutor, and he did a few things that changed my life. And I think in a way that was my first experience of a coach type person. He was a tutor, but his behavior now, when I look back and how he's observed and how he worked with young people, was very much a coaching approach. He knew what I was about. He knew how I thought, what my strengths were. He could see that. He was observing. He was always asking, looking for what's going on. So that keen eye, sense of curiosity, but also observation. So he knew me well, and he introduced me to, when I was floundering and wondering whether to do clinical psychology, and I bumped into him in the street one day, and he said, I'd like to introduce you to the radio station, and he introduced me. And that led to an amazing career at the BBC. I joined the BBC. I just hang around the station and learned the trade a bit, and then I applied for a BBC traineeship, got that. And I remember thinking, I'm the luckiest person in the world, because I get paid to do this. I love it. And I traveled all over the world. I was a presenter on the World Service and so on. And after about 22 years, I was feeling like I was doing much of the same thing, and things were changing in broadcasting. I was now working in TV. I'd done a lot of radio. I was working in TV. And one of the programs I worked on had ended, and so they'd offered some redundancy, and I took it. And I at that point, I thought, do I want to stay and do this, or do I want to create something of my own business? And I thought, there's something about changing my life that's drawing me into a different direction, because I was feeling a little bit unmotivated, and the work as a journalist, as a broadcaster, was changing, and there was a lot of dumbing down, I think, and then reporters were being asked to do producing, editing, everything. You have to be a jack of all trades, and it was getting more and more difficult. And I started to think, let me see what else is out there. I've done this for a long time now. I'm starting to do similar things, circling around a little bit. So I didn't know what I could do. I just thought, I don't have any skills outside of this. I can't do anything else. So it was a little bit uncertain. So I thought, well, let me try recruitment. I could do something around that and see if I can run my own business, because I was very important that I had my own thing, my own business. I wanted to be my own boss and, manage my own time. And I was very good at it. I worked for another company to learn the ropes, and then I worked in media and PR and marketing, but very quickly realized that I was best at working with the candidates, figuring out what they wanted, where they belonged, and working with the companies to understand how they tick, and sort of being behind the scenes in the corporate world to see what was going on, what kind of people were a good fit for them, what was going on with the culture. And before long, I was being asked to help out with some of these companies. And then I trained as a coach, and then realized that actually coaching is the thing that I find very, very powerful, working with organizations. So I wound that business up, and I started to concentrate on this. And I continued to get development. So I trained as a coach, really got into that world of coaching and trying to hone my craft. And then I continued to go on lots of courses. And I think that was the thing that really helped. And I would recommend anyone who's interested in starting out is to follow their energy, see how it feels, whether you feel excited about doing the work, when we're coaching, we often say to people, follow your energy. Where is it? Where's your energy taking you? It's, you know, your intuition is telling you something. So I just felt that it was the right path for me. But then I just delved into more and more coaching, and I invested a lot in myself, invested in courses. I invested in a team coaching course, which was brilliant. One of the best things I think I've ever done. And it was fascinating. And I'm so glad I am where I am now. But when I go into companies, I can see the merits of having had those other careers. They play a part in everything I do now, and how I look at a company, and how I work with individuals within a company, and people who want to change their careers, because I've been there and done that kind of feeling. And I know when people have lost their mojo, and they are demotivated, or even, you know, if somebody's in a rut, and there's something else they're hankering for. Sometimes you can find it within the company, but sometimes you have to make a shift. So yeah, that summarizes a little bit of what I've been doing, and how I work. But I think the shift from journalism to the other work, it wasn't an immediate one to coaching. There were steps. We often say that when we're talking to people, when we're coaching, is that the next step might not be the final step, but it's a step, and you're learning, and you're doing something, and you're being active as opposed to being passive. So as long as we're working towards something, we will realize very quickly whether or not this resonates for us, new thing that we're trying resonates for us, but it will take us somewhere.
Yeah.
Even if we make a U-turn and go back and think, well, let's eliminate that, but I know that's not for me. So what then does that mean? What was it that I do? What did I like? What drew me to that? Or who have I met? How can I expand? So whatever steps we take when we're being coached, they take us somewhere. May not be the final destination. It may take a while to get where you want to be. It's taken me a good few years to get here.
It's really interesting what you meant. Sorry, Dee, I know I'm just kind of jumping in here, but it's really interesting what you said when you were speaking with somebody and they turned around and said, why don't you be a little more realistic? How many people have heard that and then gone, oh, right, okay, maybe I can't do that. And that kind of mirrors the job of a coach. They should be, as that other person was in your life. Sorry, I forgot what name you said. But they were
Mr.
kind of
Scaife.
recognizing what no one else saw in you, essentially.
Yeah. And I always say that there's a Mr. Scaife in all of us, if we allow ourselves to be able to really look and listen and watch what people are capable of. So I just recently worked with somebody who had a real tricky time, and she'd been bringing up her children. She worked in housing for many, many years, and she didn't really know what to do, and she's been floundering for a long time. And as I was working with her, and she has issues, health issues, which means that she can't type, she can't lift things, she can't carry things. So the physical stuff is hard, but the writing as well with typing is very difficult too because of the rheumatism. But through the work, there are areas to explore, and I suggested that, because she wasn't sure, so we started looking at the kind of things that she does like, and we kind of narrowed it down. And I suggested to her that, and it's not usually for a coach to suggest, but you can see sometimes as a coach options that are emerging because of what they've said, what they've explored with you. And then in my mind, I suddenly thought, extras work, acting, something around that. She loves talking to people. She loves, so what jobs are there? And now, and kudos to her. She went out and had a little go at doing a bit of extras work, and now she's getting paid well. And she's been on two adverts already, and she rang the other day to say, "Oh my God, my life has turned around. I love it. I'm so happy. I just love what I'm doing." And it's taken her a long time to get there. But I think it's the coaching conversations that finally helped her get there, because sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. You circle the plug hole.
Yeah.
And somebody can help you to see, put the pieces together for you, help you a little bit.
I absolutely agree. That's my my starting point with coaching, actually. But you were talking there about she didn't know which way to turn, and you suggested something. And I know you said, okay, coaching is not something we don't suggest things, but things do come out in conversations, but they are leading it still. I still think that the coachee is leading, even though they're not seeing what they're getting to themselves. And sometimes you can just give them a little nudge over and say, okay, well, what about this? Do you think that, I mean, there's so much in what you said earlier that I wanted to ask, and I know Ian's probably like thinking, but I was just, that progression that you talked about from working for the BBC and a long and amazing career, to what you're doing now and all those steps in between. Do you think that you would have got to where you are if you didn't have those steps in between, or would you be somewhere completely different?
Well, I mean, well, none of us have a crystal ball to look into the future, and none of us have enough. We don't have the capacity we don't have a time machine and sliding doors at moments where we can go, well, if I went through this door, what would happen? I don't know really. I think it's possible I would have landed here anyway.
Yeah.
A circuitous route to it. I'm glad I landed on it when at my age, after having done all of those other things.
Yeah.
And by the way, I still get involved in media and journalism. I was just on BBC Scotland last week. I'm still doing, I'm keeping a little bit of that alive in me, because I think the journalist in you doesn't really ever go away. And the journalist in me also, when journalism is about getting to a story, to look, listen, and ask questions. What's the story here? What's going on? What's underneath this?
Yeah.
And how similar is that to coaching?
Absolutely, absolutely similar. And as you say, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, absolutely. Your coaching has led you to working with people in prisons. How did you get into that? And
Yeah, I got into that via I mean, when you're early doors with coaching, you start meeting people, you go to events, you create little groups where you support each other, a little bit like your group. And then a bit of word of mouth, and somebody just happened to mention, oh, there's a couple of people who are starting out this coaching in prisons, and I applied to be one of the coaches. And there was a group of us, and there was a long process of selection. And to be fair to the people, Lola Fayami is a brilliant coach, and she was the one who came up with the hero's journey idea. And Bailey Aaron is the one who was the founder, and she had the insight, sort of ex-Harvard American who's over here and wanted to do this sort of thing, and started it off with, I think, just a little bit of fund money that she picked up, about 5,000, and off she went. And it started off with 3 people, and Lola saw something in me, even though I didn't have quite so much experience as some of the others, and had hours, but not as many as some of the other people. Right. But I think she thought I was a good fit for the work. And it turned out that I was, actually, because I'm quite, probably because of work in journalism, I'm as fearless about going into new situations and talking to people from many walks of life. So, and, prisons don't, while to some people it would feel daunting to go into one, it doesn't faze me. Right. But I think my biggest thing there was building the rapport with the young people, because we used to run these workshops where they would understand coaching. It's like a hero's journey workshop, and then they would understand what that meant in terms of what coaching is all about, and they'd talk about their lives, and then they would opt for coaching or not. And I worked with lots of young men in prison. Sometimes it was called Get Through the Gates coaching, which is basically you're about to leave, bit of coaching, and then some coaching on the outside to support you. I think it's a brilliant thing to do. Will it work with every single person? No. but if it works even with one, I think it's very important. I think it's worked well to help people think. And as we know with coaching, sometimes those seeds are sort of planted, and we don't see anything. They might even go back to their normal world again.
Yeah.
But we've planted some seeds, and you don't know how long it's going to take for them to germinate and to come up with, go back with those conversations. How often will those conversations go around in their heads that they had with their coach about, talked about their lives, often for the first time in this real way. Usually they'll say, I never talked to anyone like this. I've never told anyone this. So it's difficult work, though. It's very difficult work because you hear things that are hard to hear, and you meet people who test your sense of values and what you believe in. So it's interesting and difficult. But now I don't go into the prisons, and I work with the coaches as a coach supervisor. So I'm that's the other thing I accredited in only 2 years now, 2.5 years, I think. I did a coaching supervision qualification course, and I now work as a supervisor as well.
So you're training the trainers, if you like. You're training to a degree.
Yeah, working with coaches, and I like working with coaches. The conversations are fascinating. Helping people to hone their own craft as a coach is very, it's important. I like it, and I think every coach should have a supervisor. I'm part of a supervision group, and I have supervision regularly.
So what do you look for in one of your coaches? If you see an up-and-coming coach, what sort of internal factors are you looking for in coaches? And you think, okay, this person's going to be good. What kind of traits are there?
I think there's the ability, obviously, to listen, to really listen, and not come up with options and ideas before you need to, just wait and wait and wait and see what emerges until it feels like something is happening. And really, your job as a coach is to sort of help the person get out of their own way, and for you not to be in the way either. I love the idea of some of the early work in coaching, which is sort of the David Grove and Nancy Klein work around time to think and using clean language, where you don't get in the way. You let the person think and work through things and talk about the challenges and talk about what it is they want. And as you're hearing things are coming up for you, but you're really, really present. So it requires someone who has humility and discipline in the way they work. And when I say humility, I mean that they don't believe they have all the answers, that they know that the person is resourceful. They know people almost have faith in people.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who doesn't have belief that people in the end can find a way, and you're someone who believes that you're the person who can help someone, I wouldn't want you to be a coach if you were the latter, because I think there isn't a place for rescuing in coaching. There isn't a place for taking care of someone. If that's what you want to do, become a mentor or become an advisor, or you can be an assistant. All of these, there's so many jobs out there where you can exercise your own skill sets of being, knowledgeable, imparting wisdom, helping people. And there's a real need for that, those kind of people who have great ideas and the ability to advise and give information and be mentors. But if you know the industry, quite often as coaches, we don't know the industry as well as the person you're talking to knows the industry.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't presume to go in and give advice about work. I might say what I'm noticing, or I'm sensing that this kind of thing would work. What do you think? but it's where you might ask a question. There's patience. You need patience. Those kind of people, I think. Ideally, also people who've sort of got a bit of experience of life.
Yes. Yeah.
Could I take it back a step again? Sorry. You mentioned earlier when you were talking about the work that you do in prisons, the hero's journey. Are you okay just to kind of expand on that and what that means for those prisons that you work with?
So Joseph Campbell is the author of Hero of Many Faces, I think it's called, or it's along those lines. And he worked with Joseph Campbell. He worked with Lucas, Star Wars director. What's his name again?
George Lucas.
Yeah, George Lucas.
Ah.
Yeah. So he worked with George Lucas very closely, and George Lucas approached him because he wanted to create a hero, and essentially the journey is about a story which everyone in any culture, any race, any age can identify with. We've heard them growing up. Every community in the world will be sitting there by their child or with their family telling stories of adversity and triumph and a journey. So we all recognize these kind of tales. So it's really useful to, when you're working with young people, to bring in this concept of storytelling, of a journey where you can also imagine yourself traveling. And the hero's journey identifies the known world. So you start off in the known world, the ordinary world, and then you might have a call to adventure. So for our clients, for example, it might be they find themselves in prison, or there's a potential education opportunity, or somebody keeps saying to you, you should really be a chef, you're so good, you might be a whisper. And so that's a call to adventure. You can either answer that call or you can refuse the call, and you stay in your world and nothing changes. Or if you refuse the call, quite often it keeps coming round until you go and over that threshold. And that's what he refers to as crossing the threshold, the decision to do something in the unknown. And when you enter the unknown, the first thing that Luke Skywalker does in Star Wars is, he's just living his life. He's got an adventure coming. We don't know that yet. He doesn't know that yet. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi appears, and then off you go. He's going looking for his sister and his family and helping, whatever he has to go and do to help people. A sort of the unwitting hero, and now he's in the unknown world. And the next part of it is that you can find allies. So when we're talking with young men in prison, we might say, this is your world right now, and there's something about to emerge. You could cross over the threshold, and there may be things that you don't even know about. Fear will keep you on this side. Courage will help you to go over. When you go over the other side, what you will find is potential allies. Look, you'll have inner enemies. You'll have outer enemies. Inner being your own demons, or your own limiting beliefs. Those might be your inner enemies. And your outer enemies might be your other people who don't want you to succeed. If you're in prison and you've got a group of friends who are still doing what they're doing, they don't want you to leave the group, the gang. They're not going to, they might, they might appear to be friends, but they may be your outer enemies that are not letting you progress. So what do you need to change? Who do you need to find? Who are your mentors? And then you might have ordeals to overcome. And that's where the ordeal, death and rebirth is one of the final stages, where that's when you emerge. And you see in movies, all of this arc in movies all the time, that the hero becomes a hero because he had to overcome the final hurdle, or find out his father is is Darth Vader, and then you're nearly killed, and come out the other side. And actually, for young men, maybe they have to really be prepared to do the hard work, the painful work, the difficult stuff, let the old world go. And so it's about making people more resilient, understanding that there's reward, but with reward comes sometimes suffering and difficulty and a journey, and it's not easy. It'll take a while along the way, and along the way, any point you could just give up. So we might talk about how you might persevere, and that's the hero's journey, effectively.
Nice.
I have never heard it described like that before. The impact those your words would have on people that you were talking to, and especially these young men who are finding themselves in a situation that they're in. I was just absolutely blown away. It's something that I think, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to speak to you more about it after, because it's
a tool. It's a tool to work with your clients, and we can work with it. I work with it as a tool with lots of clients.
Wonderfully insightful. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think I would just like to ask you about
Hold on.
Oh, go for it.
I hope you're going to edit all this out, Ian.
No. It's the Naked Coach Collective. It's all about exposing the truth of the coaching world.
It's because I'm doing all the talking, and it's very rare that you're, as a coach, you're supposed to be doing the least amount of talking and letting everybody else speak. But
Ian only edits out his bad bits. So
only my bad bits. Yeah, that's right. Everyone else's stays in.
The rest of it.
I'm just lucky no one else can edit. So
yeah, it's the equivalent of you keeping your loincloth on.
Exactly.
Well, he does work with 3 women, so oh my goodness. So I mean, Naina, you've given us so many golden nuggets today. So many golden nuggets in half an hour. I can't even tell you. Before we finish, Ian, is there any questions you'd like to ask?
Yes, there was one. If there was something that you know now that you didn't know when you were beginning on the coaching journey, what would that be? That you wish you knew then?
That's an interesting one, because I don't have any regrets or I don't have any feelings that I made any mistakes. I just allowed everything to unfold, and it took its time that it needed to take, and the learning came as the learning needed to come. So I suppose what I'm saying is that, and maybe if I knew that then, that it's going to all unfold, and don't worry, just keep learning and keep doing and keep trucking, and keep connecting, trying new things, techniques. It's wonderful being a coach, because you never stop learning. You never stop learning about ideas, techniques. So I would probably go back and say, you're going to be on a lovely ride and you're going to learn loads. So just, buckle up, enjoy it, and don't worry about it.
Nice.
Love it. You totally inspired me. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, your journey. Thank you.
I feel very grateful. I feel blessed. I feel blessed to be where I am.
We are certainly blessed to have you, and I can't wait to hear what our listeners make of you. There may be some questions coming, but we might have to have you on again, because it's absolutely blown away. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Naina Oliver.
Thank you.